Well, first, thank you so much for your leadership in general, but also for this Pass the Love campaign. I think it was just this time last year that we sat down to talk. And at that time, Netflix was just about to launch Waffles and Mochi, or then brand new show, and we were kicking off the campaign.
Yeah.
And now a year has passed and both were a success. So congratulations.
And congratulations to you and PHA as well, Nancy. I mean, we couldn't have done that without your leadership and your efforts to organize all sectors to rally around this issue. So congratulations to you as well. Can't believe this has been a full year, but the campaign has been a huge success.
Yeah.
And it means the world, especially in these times that we know that families are getting access to healthy meals and they're being brought around the dinner table to share and to talk.
Yeah.
Very excited about what's come of the campaign.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the stories that came in were just phenomenal from all over the country, really inspiring. You know, a mom in Detroit said her kids tried vegetables that they never ever would have tried without the meal kits. A grandmother said for the first time dinner for the grandkids was easy. And that's really just what we were hoping, that, you know, not only would we get food to people who needed it during the pandemic, but that we would really be able to accelerate the cultural shift towards, you know, eating healthy food at home and that being more accessible for people who live in under-resourced neighborhoods.
That's absolutely right. And that was the goal, not just of Pass the Love, but when we launched Let's Move many, many years ago, when we were talking about the issue of childhood obesity, which led us to a broader conversation of food access and changing the culture around eating. You and I both know that small things like making healthy foods accessible opens up a world of opportunities. When you talk about the stories that you heard about, you know, how surprising it is that parents are finding that kids are enjoying vegetables or trying new things. I mean, we saw that during my time as First Lady. I'll never forget going to one of the nursery schools, one of the Bright Star nursery schools, where they brought a chef in to give good whole meals to 2 and 3-year-olds who you would never think would sit around a table and eat. For the menu that I shared with them was baked tilapia with fresh garden salad and grilled vegetables. And those little toddlers ate that food because it was what they knew and it tasted good and it was a meal. So we should never underestimate what young people are willing to do if they just know about it. And if we as parents, as grandparents, give them access to these opportunities to try new things, they will embrace them, especially if they're wonderful characters like Waffles and Mochi who are urging them on. So
absolutely.
I love hearing those stories.
Yeah, me too. And, you know, learning, you're so right. It's just learning. You learn these things. And as you know better than anyone, PHA is a learning organization. So we do the work, that's important, but we then evaluate it, study it, learn from it, and roll those learnings back in. And some of the things that we learned this time around were, one, quality really matters.
Absolutely.
Now, coming from a food bank background, that shouldn't surprise me. But the extent to which it was true was, it just really underscored how uneven our food system is. The second, people like eating vegetables as entrees. Don't tell them ahead of time. But they really do. They like eating vegetables as entrees. And then third, wow, spice turns out to be so critical to unlocking the power of vegetables. So I'm wondering, of all the things we've learned together through this campaign, what really stands out to you?
Oh, I mean, I think emphasizing that if you give people the opportunity, they want to do the right thing. The right thing is accessible to them. I won't say that that's a surprise, but it's something we have to continuously remind ourselves of as we fight this fight. I grew up in households that weren't wealthy. My grandmothers and grandfathers didn't have a lot of money, but what they knew was how to cook, and they knew how to make something out of nothing. And that usually meant a lot of vegetables, greens and black-eyed peas and string beans. And so we grew up in those households, and there was seasoning, and there was, they brought those meals to life because they had access to a Victory Garden. They had access to the vegetable man, the vegetable truck. So it's not that they weren't interested. It was just that, poor families, when my parents were growing up, had communities that had grocery stores and gardens, and neighbors found a way to get that food into their diets because it was often cheaper for them to eat that way, to make a big pot of stew or a big bowl of rice. The notion that we would go out to a fast food restaurant, that was a luxury. You did not eat fast food. You didn't do takeout. You didn't drink juice from a box. So we come from those communities. It's just that the lack of access, how our neighborhoods have been turned inside out. Grocery stores have disappeared. Big box stores don't come to neighborhoods like the one I grew up. So you're reliant on the gas station. So what I know is that if we build it, they will come. And we just have to remind ourselves of that when private companies say, we won't be successful if we open up in these neighborhoods. Sometimes some of those grocery stores decide we can't last because it doesn't look like a certain demographic. But the truth is that we come from a culture where vegetables and fruits and home cooking and good cooking was a part of our way of being. So I'm very passionate when people are surprised because I'm not. It's just that the world has changed so much, and we have to, go back to our roots, to what we know. And that is that eating healthy, especially when you don't have access to good health care, is the thing that's going to keep you alive.
Absolutely. Well, we are fans of the charitable food system.
Yes.
I know that. And of course, there's a role for government. But, SNAP and food banks can't do it all. And so you just touched on one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I'd be so interested in how you're thinking about the role the private sector can play, not just in providing food, but in providing the kind of food we're talking about. High quality, super convenient, and incredibly delicious.
But what we talked about during my years as First Lady is that you can do well and do good at the same time. As we are shifting the culture, and families of all economic backgrounds and races are now looking for healthy alternatives, these food manufacturers can make good things that people will buy now. It's just that they've got to make it. They've got to look at the product composition. They have to, make sure that they're marketing the healthy options to families, and people will buy it. So the one thing I want to urge our food manufacturing community, the private sector, is that, keep us alive. Be thoughtful in what you're producing. Yes, we will eat processed foods. We're going to eat what's available to us and what's cheap. But we need food manufacturers to take up the mantle and to help us work to change the quality of food that families are eating, because they will buy it. And marketing is a big part of that,
Huge.
Nancy. It's like, especially with kids, we learned during my years as First Lady, if you put Mickey Mouse on a head of broccoli, children will want that too. If carrots could only have a marketing team around them, young people would, sing the song of eating a crunchy carrot.
Yeah.
So much of what our kids eat
Yeah.
is what they see and hear on TV, which is paid for by the private sector.
Yeah.
People will drink water if that's what is cool.
Yeah.
And we have tried for many years to change that culture, to make healthy eating cool. But our private sector, they're the ones with the marketing and research dollars. They have the advertising budgets to change the entire face of how this country and how this world eats.
Yeah.
So I continue to implore them to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And we have some wonderful partners who have found ways to step up and be creative, and they're making money while doing it.
Absolutely. And it really can be done. They may have to work a little harder, but it can be done. You know, you have been so instrumental in inspiring so much from these young people. And one of the things I just want to know, across all sectors, government, private sector, these entrepreneurs who talk to us, who've been inspired by your work, people who are, you know, late 20s and 30s, but were kids when you were doing so much work in the White House. What do we do to keep all this going? How do we harness it? Because I feel like our generation really has to leverage the passion of young people if we want to get to just what you were talking about.
Well, like you said, we've laid that foundation. And so the 20-somethings are the products of the work we did 10 years ago. I remember meeting a young girl. I meet them all over the place, but this one told me, she said she had just read my book and she realized, you're the one who started all that Let's Move stuff. She said, my whole cafeteria changed. I remember it. She remembered it, that it went from a lot of junk food to having delicious meals. And she said, I never realized it was you. At the time, she was on her way to college. And she said, the way she eats and thinks about food is different. So we have to remember that while we're supporting and lifting up those in their 20s, we've got to keep educating the young.
Yep.
You know, we have to keep reaching back, because that's when young people are open, when they're in nursery school and kindergarten. That's why the school lunch program is so important. So we have to continue to lay that foundation so that generations to come just are developing a different set of habits and expectations, so that by the time they're real consumers with purchasing power and they're ready to sit at seats at the table, they're coming with what they've grown up with.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't developed the fast food habit, the quick as it goes habit. They understand the meaning of food in their lives. They've grown up that way. So we have to continue to make room for those leaders now to take up to use their power, to start working within those companies.
Yep.
You know, and push them to make the change that we need. But we can't forget the younger kids that are now coming up.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we cannot stop this wave. We have to keep it going. And in order to do that, we're going to continue need the support from all sectors.
Yeah.
Government, our nonprofits, our charitable organizations, they all have to work hand in hand. So we have to continue to push for that change, and push for that involvement. We need more partners. We need everyone involved.
Yeah.
And we have to do things in a very big way. It's not enough to sort of do a small donation over here, or, you know, while it's important to work on Pass the Love, there are many campaigns like this all over the country that are not PHA driven, but we have to be partnering together so that we're really maximizing the resources that we have. And PHA is taking a leadership role at that. And that's something that I am grateful to you, Nancy, and to the entire organization for continuing to push and to keep these conversations top of mind in all the sectors.
Well, thank you so much. I want to tell you the cool thing we're doing now, and this Pass the Love was all part of it. So we figured out, you know, how to make these meal kits at prices that could compete with fast food. And that was no small feat.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we put them out and we found out people love them. The stories came in. Guess what? They love them. Guess what? They're fast.
Yeah.
Guess what? They do like vegetables as entrees. So now what's next for PHA is we have to find places where we can make them available for sale at prices that are less than a burger and fries or a pizza. And so we're doing 3 really exciting pilots. One, we're piloting selling them in schools when people pick up their children.
Yes.
We're partnering with YMCA to try to see how about when kids pick up their kids from a program at the Y. And we just found out last week that we're going to actually be selling them in Stop and Shop. That's in Boston.
Excellent.
So we're actually going to test the private sector model, and we're going to see, because it is part of a culture shift. We know people love the meals, but now they have to be convenient enough. And that's what I mean about just, working and make it a little bit harder. But we're super excited about learning and what's next that flowed from this campaign.
This is the beauty of PHA. You all have the resources to pilot, to test out these theories, to find out what's working, what isn't. And once you do, then we can step in and help amplify it. So I am, again, so grateful for the creativity and the ingenuity and the, the enthusiasm that you are embracing all of these efforts and the ones to come. And I look forward to continuing our work for many, many years. And hopefully we'll work ourselves out of a job. Right? That's the goal ultimately.
Well, thank you. And my very last question is, what's next for you?
Oh, in general, in the world? Well, we just finished taping the 2nd season of Waffles and Mochi, because I believe that culture starts where kids are, where kids and families are, and creating some excitement around food and getting kids curious about trying new things and doing it in a way that's fun and doesn't feel punitive. It doesn't feel too strict. So I'm excited that Waffles and Mochi are going to be back on the scene, talking to kids at very young ages and rallying people around the TV to try new and wonderful recipes. And we want to continue to tell the stories of what has been successful. I want to be a part of uplifting what's working, so that we can expand on what's good and what's right. So
well, it's very exciting. I can't wait to see season 2. We can't wait to learn what's working. And I just really want to thank you again for your leadership and your support. You're really an inspiration.
Thank you, Nancy. Congratulations. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.